What's going on YouTube? It's your boy CamATL, and thank you guys for joining me as always. I am back with another Thursday night showdown advice video, blah blah blah. All right. Make sure you drop a like down below, comment anything in the comment section, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's go ahead and get straight into this to get this money, man. Let's start week 7 off with a bang. We have won 3 straight weekends in a row. We are going for our 4th. Excited for this showdown. There are several ways that we can go. So we're not going to waste too much time. We're going to get straight into it. All right. Greenlightdfs.com to join the squad. Make sure you hit it up before Thursday night so you get Thursday included. You get college football on Saturday included, Sunday, Monday, all that good stuff. So make sure you hit it up today. All right. Let's get straight into it. Now, first and foremost, let's talk about the simulations I ran. You guys know I've been playing with the simulations stuff like that. The simulations that I ran, it ran over 4,000 times. The better quarterback in this matchup ended up being Carson Wentz by about 30 yards or so. Not a huge thing. Another thing that I noticed is, on average, they threw about 40 times a game. So a lot more. There was a lot more passing on average than rushing. So I'm not expecting too much, and which kind of makes sense because at the end of the day, Boston Scott struggled a ton on the last time. Philly throws a ton. Um, and then Devonta Freeman, he got 19 carries in the last game. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get some decent rushes, but here's the thing. Both defenses have actually been okay versus the run, but they have struggled in the air versus the pass. So I believe that both of these offenses are probably going to throw a good bit. Am I off of Boston Scott? Absolutely not, because at the end of the day, Boston Scott has been a guy who has blown up before. We know his potential, and possibly because he let so many people down last time he got his opportunity, people will sleep on him and not play much of him. So in that case, in GPP, he definitely interests me because people might sleep on him, even maybe as captain. And if this game goes, see, like I said, I'm expecting more of a pass game. The average simulated score of this game ended up being 21-19. So it's not a super high scoring affair. I I don't know. I'm thinking it's going to be a lot of passing though. I'm thinking both defenses could be solid plays, both kickers could be solid plays. Like at the end of the day, the Eagles kicker ended up being the main guy scoring the most points in the simulation over the 4,000 times I simulated it. The Eagles side of it in general. All right. The number one receiver that came through on the simulations, Greg Ward, which is a guy I was going to talk to regardless. Before I even did the simulations, Greg Ward's a guy I had interest in, and we'll talk about him and talk about why. Greg Ward and Fulgham were the two guys for the Eagles that really stepped up, which I completely see. Deshaun Jackson is going to be back, but one long route and he could hurt that hammy again and be out again. So I would expect them to have him on a limited snap count. I don't think he's going to come back to full workload. So that's not going to really alter anything when it comes to guys like Greg Ward and Fulgham. But Greg Ward and Fulgham are the receiving targets that I'm interested in for Philly, the main receiving targets. I do have interest in Boston Scott. And then on the Giants side, Daniel Jones, Darius Slayton, Devonta Freeman. Those are kind of the main guys I'm interested in there. So with that said, let's talk captain. Now, one thing that really sticks out to me here is the price on Devonta Freeman. Okay, the only issue here is he gets about 3 targets a game, so he's not going to be too involved into the pass game. But at the end of the day, he's only 11-1. That price, 11-1 compared to Daniel Jones at 15-6 or Darius Slayton at 13-8. Now, my favorite ways to go is normally quarterback or receiver or pass catching back at captain. Neither like Boston Scott can catch passes. Devonta Freeman can catch passes. We saw him a million times when he played for the Falcons catch those screens and turn them into big plays and stuff like that. So I could see it, but they have Dion Lewis there. I mean, why really use him in a pass? Like if they're gonna run a pass play, might as well have Dion Lewis run it, not Devonta Freeman. So, but Devonta Freeman at 11-1, I wanted to mention him because he is cheap. Now, my favorite ways to go at captain is probably going to be like Darius Slayton, Fulgham. These two guys are fantastic options at captain. I could go either one of them. You can go with the quarterbacks. Obviously, if you had to choose one, I would say go Wentz, even with him missing his other guys because Philly just throws the ball so much and they're at home in Philly. But I talked about the simulations and what my own gut was on. Greg Ward at captain really opens up a ton for the rest of your lineup. He's only 7-2 at captain. And like I said, in the simulations, he was the number one receiver for this Eagles team. He was averaging 7 catches and over 70 yards receiving. Okay, like that's ridiculous. And that's 4,000 simulations of this game. On top of that, before I did the simulations, my gut was all over Greg Ward. I love the price for Greg Ward. Him and Rodgers. You got to understand, Ertz is out. Okay, Alshon Jeffrey's still out. You're missing guys for this Philly team. Okay, Miles Sanders is out. Like you've got some big guys. Like Ertz and Sanders are the main targets on this team. You take them out, there's a lot of targets to go around. Fulgham's already been eating targets, so I can completely understand if you go Fulgham there. Fulgham is a fantastic option at captain. That's completely fine. But if you want to save some money, and in this like core, I'm gonna go GPP and GPP. I'm liking Greg Ward, or I'm liking to go with Boston Scott solely on the fact that that's probably going to be a low-owned variation, and that's probably the way I would lean. Greg Ward's only 7-2 at captain. And like I said, I see him having a solid game here. Philly loves to throw. They're a pass-heavy team, especially with Miles Sanders out. I expect them to throw it more often. And so Greg Ward is interesting to me. I'm not going to lie. And a lot of people might be off of that because Deshaun Jackson's back. I'm not expecting a full workload there. And like I said, Boston Scott is solid for GPP as well because everybody's off of him because he let him down last game. I wouldn't be surprised to see him have a big game, but keep your expectations in check because both defenses are solid, okay versus the run, and they struggle versus the pass. So I would prefer a pass-catching receiver at captain or one of the quarterbacks, but I prefer receiver mostly because on DraftKings you got the full point PPR. All right, to go on from there, obviously Carson Wentz I'm going to pair him up with. So I'm going to be going my favorite build probably on this showdown is going to be 4 Philly, 2 Giants. That's kind of the way I've been leaning because Philly is so hurt right now. I'm wanting to go mainly Philly and then pair him up with a few Giants. Maybe go, whatever Philly guys you want and then run it back with some Daniel Jones and Slayton, which is my favorite duo. If I had to pick 2 Giants that I want, it would be Slayton and Daniel Jones. Devonta Freeman is in a solid position because if he gets another 19 carries, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get in the end zone and return the value that you need out of him. Okay, so I'm completely fine with Devonta Freeman too. The main strategy that I'm looking for here is more of a pass catching. I want guys who are going to catch a little bit more passes. But I do like the fact that Devonta Freeman got 19 carries in that last game. So if he can get a solid amount of carries in this one, it's great. And like I said, in the simulations, neither running back got many carries at all. It was definitely a pass-heavy game. Both teams didn't score a ton. On average, it was 20, like I said, 21-19, something like that. So it was a very close game. Eagles won. Okay, Eagles won most of the times. The average score 21-19. So there's not a ton of points being put up. Both offenses kind of sputtered. So I wouldn't be surprised to see kickers go crazy. And if you want to run some defenses, I'm completely on board with both defenses as well. All right. So anyways, going on with our core. I told you guys, Philly is my main offense that I want exposure to. Ward, Wentz, and Fulgham are the core guys that I want. In GPP, Boston Scott as well. Boston Scott's probably one of the higher ones on the GPP because solely on the fact that, like I've said a bunch of times already in this video, Boston Scott let a ton of people down last time. I expect him to make a comeback here in this one at home in Philly. I wouldn't be surprised to see him do well here. And they like to dump the ball off to their running back. So Boston Scott is a solid option here. And I'm hoping that you can get some low-owned variations with him for GPP because if he goes off, he ends up being the big guy here because the last few weeks they've been utilizing Miles Sanders a ton and they've been doing solid. They've been doing okay with that. So with Sanders out, expect them to possibly try to continue that same game plan and use a lot of Scott. All right, so Scott's solid for GPP. I'm not going to put him in this because Greg Ward's in my captain spot. Wentz, Fulgham, and then on the other Giants spot, like I said, my core guys are going to be Philly players. I'm going to end up probably doing a 4-2 stack, Philly and then Giants. But my main guys that I love is Slayton and Jones on the Giants side. Those are the main guys that I love. Outside of that, Evan Ingram, Devonta Freeman. If I had to rate them, I would probably go Slayton, Jones, Freeman in that order, and then Evan Ingram fourth. But yeah, I'm not going to have much Golden Tate. Who knows, he could go off, but I'm not going to have a ton of him. Anybody else? Rodgers, I wanted to talk about in the Showdown slate. With Ertz out, you're going to see a lot of Rodgers. Okay, you're going to see a solid amount of Rodgers. Now, could they keep him back to block more? to give Wentz as much time as possible because that offensive line is hurting a ton? Yes. Okay, and that wouldn't surprise me a ton to keep him back and not really run a ton of tight end routes because that offensive line is so bad for Wentz right now. And that's another reason why running backs kind of scare me a little bit outside of Boston Scott and GPP is because both offensive lines are banged up, especially the Eagles. Like Wentz is going to have to dump off a ton, okay? Which when it comes between the tackles, Philly's running backs are most likely going to struggle. They're going to get probably bottled up early. But Boston Scott dump offs could be a thing as well. So it's a tough decision. Both kickers are in play. Elliott and Gano, both guys are in play 100%. I'm not going to have a ton of Whiteside, even though Philly's missing some wide receiver guys. I'm not going to have a ton of Whiteside. I prefer Hightower more, just because that's honestly that is who my gut is on more than Whiteside. Whiteside just hasn't been doing much. I'm feeling Hightower a little bit more, and he's 1,200. You know, he's 1,200 less than Whiteside. So I definitely like Hightower. Hightower's gotten some red zone targets as well. So they definitely like targeting him down there. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get in the end zone and vulture somebody's touchdown from him here at only 1,200. So I definitely like Hightower. He's definitely a way that you can go as well. Um, and yeah, that's about it. I mean, like I said, this core, the way that I have it laid out, is kind of leaning GPP here because Greg Ward's probably going to be lowish owned at the captain spot, but it's definitely an interesting way to go, and it gives you a good amount of money to really balance things out, kind of make a really balanced lineup. So just play with it, have fun with it. It's a showdown. Don't bet a ton of your bankroll on showdown slates because literally it's one game and one little different one. Like, you know what I mean? Like on showdowns, sharks really excel on these because they make 100 million variations and like every possible outcome they have a lineup for. But at the end of the day, we have gotten a takedown already this year on Showdown, so we could do it again. I'm going to have fun with it. I'm going to go for that top spot. Plain and simple, that's it. All right, greenlightdfs.com. Good luck, y'all, and let's get this money. I'm out.